What if everything you were taught about the golf swing was wrong? Not slightly off, not a minor adjustment. Fundamentally, systematically wrong for your body, your build, your natural movement. For decades, golf instructors handed every student the same blueprint. Copy the pros, mirror the swing on TV. And for decades, millions of golfers followed that advice faithfully and still never improved. One man saw this problem clearly. He had a different question. What if the perfect swing isn't the same for everyone? That question changed everything. Jim Suttie grew up in DeKalb, a quiet town in Illinois where life moved at the pace of the seasons and golf was just something fathers played on weekends. His father was a pediatrician, a man of science, of precision, of careful observation. And one morning, when Jim was just 4 years old, his father took him to Kishwaukee Country Club and handed him a club. That was all it took. Suttie fell in love with the game immediately. He practiced obsessively, quietly, relentlessly. By the time he reached high school, he was the #1 player on his team. By the time he left for Northern Illinois University, he had already shot a round of 63 at Kishwaukee, a course record that, remarkably, still stands today. But somewhere along the way, Suttie arrived at an honest conclusion about himself. He was good, very good, just not tour good. As he later reflected, "I never played the tour, but I've always been a good player." That admission wasn't defeat, it was clarity. If he couldn't be the greatest player in the world, he would do something far more interesting. He would become the man who understood golf better than anyone else alive. That decision would take him somewhere no golf instructor had ever gone before. After graduating from Northern Illinois University in 1970, Suttie took a job as an assistant professional at Shore Acres Country Club in Illinois. It was here, on a quiet suburban course, that the first glimpses of his unconventional genius began to show. To demonstrate body mechanics to his students, Suttie would drop to his knees right there on the fairway and hit full golf shots from that position. It was a vivid, physical way of showing exactly how weight transfer and rotation worked without the distraction of footwork. Members gathered to watch. They loved it. The insurance company, however, did not. As Suttie himself recalled with dry humor, "I used to hit a lot of shots on my knees, and members loved it, and insurance hated it." This was the essence of who he was, a teacher willing to look ridiculous if it meant his student understood something more deeply. No ego, no performance, just results. But this period was also one of uncertainty. After winning 2 conference championships as a coach at Eastern Kentucky University, Suttie found himself moving between courses across Illinois without a clear next step. He later described it simply, "I just kind of wandered around the state of Illinois. I was kind of between coaching careers." Most people in that situation settle. Suttie did not. He was quietly building towards something that would redefine his profession entirely, and it would begin with a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. In 1982, while most golf instructors were perfectly content teaching by feel and intuition, Jim Suttie made a decision that nobody in his profession had ever made before. He enrolled in a doctoral program in biomechanics, not because it was easy, not because anyone asked him to, but because he saw something others refused to see, that golf instruction was built on opinion, not evidence, on tradition, not science. There was just one problem. Middle Tennessee State University, where he enrolled, had no biomechanics laboratory. So Suttie improvised. Every single weekend. For 4 years, he got in his car and drove north to the University of Kentucky in Lexington, hours each way just to access the equipment he needed. While his colleagues spent their weekends on the course, Suttie spent his in a laboratory, placing markers on golf clubs, positioning cameras at precise angles, and recording the swings of PGA Tour professionals frame by frame. He analyzed each swing across 10 distinct positions. He measured how the body moved side to side, how rotation generated power, how different builds produced different natural patterns. From hundreds of hours of data, he built something that had never existed before the first scientific model of the golf swing. As he later explained, "I saw the way golf was going with technology. From 1982 to 86, I went to get a doctorate." His doctoral thesis carried a title that sounded more like a medical study than anything golf had ever produced: a biomechanical comparison between conventional golf swing teaching and a unique kinesthetic feedback technique. This was not a hobby project. This was a man quietly laying the foundation for a revolution. Because what Suttie discovered in that laboratory would shatter the single biggest assumption in golf instruction, the idea that there was one correct way to swing a club. There wasn't, and he could now prove it. Long before the doctoral thesis, long before the data and the markers and the cameras in a university lab, as far back as 1971, Jim Suttie was already doing something that made him look, to most people, completely out of his mind. He was filming golf swings, not with a simple handheld camera, with high-speed video equipment, bulky, expensive, awkward, strapped to his body as he walked the course. He would position himself at different angles, recording his students mid-swing, then study the footage in detail to identify exactly what was happening in the fraction of a second the club met the ball. Nobody in golf instruction was doing this, not one person. But Suttie took it even further. He developed what he called a side-by-side video comparison, a technique where he would place a student's swing directly alongside the swing of a tour professional with a similar body type. Using computer graphics, he could show a student not just what they were doing wrong, but precisely how their own natural movement compared to someone who had mastered it. As he later reflected, "I started what I call the video computer graphics side-by-side comparison. I think I was about the first." Today, this technology is standard in every serious golf academy on the planet. Every lesson, every swing analysis, every coaching session on the professional tours uses some version of what Suttie pioneered. He built the tool the entire industry now depends on decades before the industry knew it needed it. That is not influence. That is invention. Everything Suttie had built, the solitary weekends at the university lab, the hours of footage analyzed frame by frame, the pioneering video technology, the data was pointing toward a single, radical conclusion. There is no such thing as one perfect swing. In 1998, he co-authored a book that formalized this idea for the entire golf world. It was called The Laws of the Golf Swing. Golf magazine named it the best new instruction book of the year. But more importantly, it gave the industry a framework it had never had before. The system was built around three fundamental swing types: leverage, arc, and width, each corresponding to a different body type, a different level of flexibility, a different natural movement pattern. A tall, flexible golfer swings differently from a compact, powerful one. A player with quick hands needs different fundamentals than a player driven by lower body rotation. The implications were enormous. It meant that a student who had spent years failing to copy their favorite tour professional was not failing because of lack of effort. They were failing because they were being taught the wrong swing for their body. Suttie described his core philosophy simply: we concentrate on working with each student's natural swing pattern, not against it. This was the equivalent of personalized medicine entering a world that had only ever prescribed one treatment for every patient. It earned him a reputation that spread far beyond his students. Instructors from across America, and eventually from Europe, Asia, and beyond, began seeking out his certifications and seminars. He became known by a title that said everything: the teacher that teaches the teacher. Before the books, before the awards, before the science and the framework and the Hall of Fame, there was a young man at a small community college in Florida who could not break 82 days in a row. His name was Paul Azinger. Suttie was coaching at Brevard Community College in the late 1970s when Azinger walked into his life. By every measurable standard, Azinger was not a prospect. He was inconsistent, unpolished, and nowhere near the level required to compete professionally. Most instructors would have seen a recreational golfer with limited ceiling. Suttie saw something different. He saw a body, a natural movement pattern, and a set of raw tendencies that, if matched with the right fundamentals, could become something extraordinary. So he went to work. Not by rebuilding Azinger from scratch, not by forcing him into a textbook swing, but by studying what Azinger naturally did and constructing a framework around it. 3 years later, Paul Azinger was on the PGA Tour. Years after that, he won the PGA Championship. He went on to captain the United States Ryder Cup team and won. Azinger never forgot where it started. In his own words, "When I first met Jim Suttie, I couldn't break 82 days in a row. After 3 years with Jim as my coach, I was on the PGA Tour. His knowledge of the swing and expert analysis are unmatched." This was not a coaching success story. This was proof of concept. Not every student becomes a champion, but this one did, because for the first time in his life, he was taught the right swing for him. Azinger was the most famous name, but he was far from the only one. Over the course of his career, Suttie worked with more than 150 professionals across the PGA Tour, the LPGA Tour, and the Champions Tour. Some came to him at the height of their careers. Others came when everything had fallen apart. Chip Beck was one of the latter. Beck had been one of the most recognizable names on the PGA Tour through the 1980s and 90s, but by the mid-2000s, his game had deteriorated badly. He had sought help from multiple instructors. Nothing worked. His career appeared to be over. Then he found Doc. What followed was one of the most remarkable comebacks in Champions Tour history. In 2006, having just turned 50 and newly eligible for the Champions Tour, Beck competed in just 5 events and earned over $500,000 in prize money. But the numbers told only part of the story. It was what Beck said afterward that revealed the true measure of what Suttie had done. "I can't begin to express my admiration of Dr. Suttie. He is the one true genius in the golfing profession that I have met. He put me back together when no other person could. I'm forever grateful for his unselfish devotion and help in getting me back to a competitive level." Loren Roberts, an 8-time winner on the PGA Tour, put it even more directly. "In my opinion, Jim is America's best golf instructor. I believe he can make anyone a better player." Anyone. Not just the talented, not just the young, anyone. That was the word that defined Jim Suttie more than any trophy or ranking ever could. The golf world is not always quick to recognize its own, but eventually it could not ignore Jim Suttie any longer. In 2000, the PGA of America named him National Teacher of the Year, the highest honor in American golf instruction. By 2007, Golf Digest had ranked him the #1 teacher in Illinois and number 18 in the entire United States. Golf Magazine granted him emeritus status on their top 100 teachers list, a permanent place for life that could never be taken away. And then, in 2024, came the moment that said everything. Suttie was inducted into golf's top 100 Teachers Hall of Fame, standing alongside David Ledbetter, Butch Harmon, and Hank Haney. The most celebrated names in the history of golf instruction gathered in the same room. The man who had once knelt on a fairway to teach a lesson. The man who had driven alone through the night to reach a laboratory that his own university did not have. That man now stood among the greatest the sport had ever produced. A fellow PGA professional who had attended Suttie's teaching seminars and later received lessons from him perhaps captured it best. He's the guy other instructors send videotapes of their students to, and he's glad to help. Unassuming, patient, and effective, he's the best. Not the loudest, not the most marketed, just quietly and undeniably the best. The lesson Jim Suttie leaves behind is not technical, it is philosophical. For decades, golfers were handed someone else's swing and told to make it work. Most never did. Not because they lacked dedication, but because nobody had stopped to ask the most important question in teaching: what works for this specific person? Suttie asked that question every single day of his career, and he built an entire science around the answer. As he once said, there is no have to when you learn the golf swing. No have to, no single template, no correct copy, just you, your body, and a swing that was always yours, waiting for the right teacher to help you find it. If you were ever handed someone else's swing and told it was the only way, now you know. Doc Suttie knew that 50 years ago. The question is, are you still swinging someone else's game?